Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Martin. We're at Grimsby Yardbirds with Tyketto with Danny Vaughn. Good afternoon.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. We've had our sound check. We now know how it's going to go tonight. It's always a good sign.
It's going to be a great show. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's our first time in Grimsby. First time in Yardbirds with the full band. I've played here a number of times acoustically, but never played with the full band. And since they've, largened up the room and improved everything, it's a tremendous sound. We're really excited.
Yeah, it's a great space, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
What were your first memories of music?
Oh God!
Long
My
ago.
mother would have said it was in the womb. That she said I was kicking the Beatles tunes and came out listening to them. Luckily, I had very musical parents in that they listened to a lot of stuff. My dad actually played piano, but there was all kinds of different music. In fact, one of my favorite stories is that my parents' first date was to go see a new band that had just come to Cleveland called Bill Haley and the Comets. So I do have a bit of a pedigree when it comes to rock and roll. Plus it was Cleveland, so that's where the Moondogs started, and rock and roll radio was born. For me, yeah, everything early days is Beatles, but there was a lot of folk music in my house. Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, Simon and Garfunkel. My dad liked Joe Cocker a lot, which I do too, and kind of just gravitated from there. But music was always around.
That's good. What influenced you to be a songwriter?
I think I just, like a lot of things in my life, I just kind of got blown into it like a leaf in the wind. My first band, I didn't write anything because we had another guy who we all thought was brilliant, so he just wrote all the songs. I started writing my first songs in that band, but it was just for me, and I didn't think they were as good as what he was doing. And then eventually, you start, at least I did, I started getting interested in the craft of it. Again, you start with Beatles, but, for me, you've got guys like John Hyatt, Tom Waits, Don Henley, Bruce Hornsby. These to me are just a few of some of like the really great songwriters that I kind of listen to and do my best to lightly steal their ideas.
Well, you've got to start somewhere, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe you were doing rehearsals in a show house.
Oh, you're talking about the early days.
Back in the early days.
It was one time the guy had a business of underwater demolition. And so he had a house that was a series of offices at the top floor. You walk down the hallway a little bit and down a set of steps, and that was his showroom for all of his high-tech diving equipment and everything like that. When his company went bankrupt, one of the conditions of his bankruptcy is that he had to have live-in security at all times, because the equipment was all worth millions of bucks and all this sort of thing. So he never told us any of that, and he was just like, "Hey, you guys need a place to rehearse? You can use my warehouse and all that." This is great. We didn't know that we were on-site security.
That was good. Yeah, worked well for both of you.
It did, yeah.
How long has the band been together?
Well, depends on what you call together at this point. I mean, Tyketto started in 1988. That's when Mike Arbini and I had met, and I at that point I'd been out of Wasted for about a year and hadn't found anything. Fortune had not come knocking, so I decided to start looking for my own band. So it started then. It's like any relationship. It's been on and off. I mean, I left Tyketto in '96, and we didn't unite as Tyketto again until 2004, even though they did continue without me for a while. So it's been on and off, whenever possible. But, luckily, we've never completely gone away in the minds of the music fans. So I've been very fortunate.
Yes, you've got some great music out there.
Thank you. Yeah, we try. We're talking about another album. At least getting it written next year. Maybe recorded as well. We'll see what happens.
That could be good. look forward to that one.
I hope, yeah. It's been a while, and there's one due. So, but now I've got a relatively new lineup. So we needed to really get our live chops together and make sure everybody gets along real well, and it's a good atmosphere for work.
That was my next question. Who's in the current lineup?
Right. So, starting with the most tenure, Jed Rylands, keyboards and vocals. He's been with us for 12 years. And that was at an early decision when we first reunited, and Brooke wasn't, he didn't want to do as much singing as he used to do, so we thought we'd look for a backing singer. And I'd worked with Jed on a solo project of mine and a solo project of his, and I thought, there's enough keyboards on the albums to warrant having a keyboard player on stage. And then Jed found ways to fit in on songs where there aren't keyboards and all that, and it really created a sound that we all liked much better. So he's the longest standing member now. Then after him we have Chris Childs on bass, who of course, as everybody knows, is also the bass player for Thunder and a lot of other ongoing projects. He's probably Britain's hardest working bass player. So, I have him whenever I can get him. There are moments where, he's just double booked. But the most recent entries are my dear friend Johnny D on drums, who was in Wasted with me in 85, 86, 87. And he also double duties with Dora Pesh and her band. And we have the new blood, Harry Scott Elliott on guitar, who was with Cheryl Kane. And that's how I met him when Kane opened up for us. I want to say like 2017, I think. And so it's all a bit familial, which is great. There were no cattle calls or anything like that. I knew who we needed.
Oh, that's good. How's the dynamics of the band changed since you've got Harry?
Well, it's certainly better looking, and a bit younger. He's again new blood. Tyketto's always been about, as I mentioned earlier, about family, because we're not buying houses and Jaguars on what we do. We're we might be able to pay our utility bills, and that's nice. But in other words, you got to enjoy it. You can't be making minimal money and be miserable. There's no point.
No.
So there was a lot of thought put into the atmosphere that we put together, and it really is. If any of the band's wives or girlfriends is able to come along to shows, there's never a bother, because we all are very comfortable around one another and everybody's very welcome. So Harry's fit into that very well. Now, what kind of mark he's going to make on new songs will be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
Because he's actually, I didn't even realize that. I knew Harry as a very good rock and roll guitar player, but I've seen him play acoustically now. We've sat down, and he's well versed in finger picking and jazz and a lot of things. So it'll be interesting to see what he brings to the table.
Yeah, he's very talented, isn't he?
He is, and he's just a lovely, low-key guy that fits right in with our ethos.
Yeah, brilliant. Have you ever met anybody in the business that surprised you along the way?
A lot of people surprised me, sure. There's always specific questions like that in my mind just flatlines. It's always so funny. I was telling some Lemmy stories the other day. I'm not entirely sure that qualifies, because there was nothing surprising about how gruff and yet wonderful Lemmy was.
Oh, wow.
I encountered him 3 times, and he was exactly as you expect him to be. With Pete Way, you never knew who you were going to meet, because he knew everybody. I just found a photo recently of Brian Johnson and myself at a Wasted show. It's like I knew someone had taken a picture of that, so it was nice to see. And there are people that are not worth mentioning because they surprised you in an unpleasant way, so we'll leave them out.
Is there anybody you haven't worked with that you'd like to work with in the future?
Oh, yeah, that'd be a long list for sure. Some of the songwriters I just named, it would be nice to do some backing vocals for Bruce Hornsby or something like that, or, get on a Rolling Stones tour and do some backing vocals. Still got all the same dreams I had as a kid.
Well, you've got to keep dreaming, haven't you?
Absolutely, absolutely, I will do.
What other musical projects are you involved in? Apart from Tyketto.
Yeah, I do a lot of work for hire, which, you know, it can be quite rewarding, and, you know, you always learn stuff. I've done several things sometimes it's for people that aren't even releasing anything. It's their own demo projects, and if the music is something that intrigues me, I get sent more than my fair share of metal stuff, and, you know, sometimes it's kind of like, yeah, you know, I'm drifting in other directions now. But, so yeah, there's like endless things that I've guest appearanced on. I'm also, but during COVID, you know, looking for other things to sort of do and other ways to explore music is I've started composing music for TV. And that's been really fun because it's not limited to any genre. You know, I can be doing, you know, Hawaiian ukulele one day and, you know, dark, scary monster movie music another day and things like that. Yeah, and I have a lot of fun doing it.
Sounds very interesting.
It is. Like I said, I got into it because I was home and thinking I'd always sort of thought I'd like to dabble in it, and suddenly there was all the time in the world. You know, we weren't even allowed to leave the house for a while. And I knew a couple people in the business, so, you know, I got mentored by a couple of good friends of mine, and so it's an ongoing thing where I'm always submitting stuff, and some of it's been used on American TV shows. Nothing big yet. You know, mostly like incidental background stuff, but, you know, it's all out there, and it's so much fun. You know, when somebody comes to you and says, "Yeah, we need 3.5-minute long funk tunes with this instrumentation and all that," and suddenly you got like this recipe that you have to put together and make work. And, you know, you start out going, "I don't know if I can do this," but you give it a shot. And it's very challenging to your creativity, and I love that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's great, that is. What other gigs have we got coming up? Have we got any more?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, this is the last 2 shows for this year for Tyketto. I'm doing a few. I do acoustic house concerts, you know, private concerts, as well as occasional acoustic tour. So I've got several house concerts coming up at the beginning of next year. By the time this goes out, I think it'll be official that Tyketto's going to go to Australia next year. But I don't know when this goes out, but don't put it out tomorrow. Yeah, we'll let them announce it. But yeah, so that'll be our first time there. And Tyketto's got a bunch of the festival things lined up for next year. A UK tour in September. We're doing some European shows in May. And I've got a solo acoustic thing in Switzerland. There's it's all kind of mix and match. There's a lot of plates in the air at the moment.
It's good. It'll all come together.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the way most artists survive now. We don't do one thing anymore. Only the biggest of the big do one thing. You got to diversify to keep afloat. What
plans have you got for the future?
I'm not very good at planning for the future. This thing about TV music that I mentioned to you is kind of my investment in, if you will, a retirement plan. You know, it's something I can do at home. I don't have to have long hair or, I can be ugly and bearded and sitting in a onesie and still do it because nobody's looking. And I can do it to any age, But as far as the future goes, we're really testing the waters. This year is I think, the most dates Tyketto has done as a band in a decade, easy, as far as in a single year. So one of the advantages now of having a band that is now all based on this side of the pond is we're much more available. It was always difficult, that portion of it with the previous members, just because you had 2, maybe 3 guys coming from America. And aside from the Monsters of Rock cruise, there's not much call for Tyketto in America, unfortunately. We can't pull the numbers. So we rarely, if ever, play there. We might get a festival offer here and there, but it's become just such an expensive thing. Yeah. So now over here, as I say, we're starting to explore new territories. So that's the big thing. And as mentioned earlier, definitely I'm gonna start concentrating on writing a new Tyketto album. I've also got the songs for another solo album, which 2019 I had my Myths, Legends, and Lies, which was a solo album I was really, really proud of. And it's very different. It's a very diverse record. It's not a rock and roll record. Much more of a singer-songwriter thing. So I've got like the second version of that kind of in the back of my mind as well. The songs are written, so it's just a matter of getting the demos together and deciding when to go into the studio.
Yeah.
So basically, there's as much as I care to put the work in for, because it's all a lot of work.
Yeah.
The solo stuff, the last one, was all funded by the fans, in a GoFundMe program, and I'll probably do that again. And that's great. It's wonderful. It's direct contact with the people that support you, but it is as long a day as anybody else that goes out and works a day job. It's 10, 12, 16-hour days sometimes when you're doing that.
You never know when you're going to finish, do you?
No, you don't.
What sort of response have you had from your current tour? Like you say, you're better in the UK than...
Yeah, well, the UK's always been the band's stronghold. So, that's always one.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're all right, mate. We just took your space while you were sound checking.
No, that's all right. Just Scott's guitar.
So, yeah, sorry, got to go back to that one. What was that?
What response have you had from the current tour?
The response has been amazing. I mean, the last thing we did in May was the triple headliner, was FM Tyketto Dare, and we all switched off who was headlining, who was on first, who was on last for every show. And that really was, for me, going to be the litmus test as far as whether or not Tyketto would stay, because for me, Tyketto without Mike Arbini and Chris Green was something I never thought I'd continue on with. It was them that pushed me to keep going, funnily enough. Michael kept saying, look, as long as you're up front singing the songs, people are going to want to hear it. So I had to sort of believe him and try it out and see how the fans reacted. And they were 100% behind it. Never got one, well, it's just not the same anymore. Never got one complaint about that. So, yeah, the reaction's been amazing. I just saw the Planet Rockstock review, and I think the word perfect was used. I'll take it.
That's fantastic. Great news. Where can people find out about your music?
Well, the easiest place for me is DannyVaughn.com. There's also Tyketto.com, and we're on all the usual Facebook, Instagrams, and things like that. Some of it's on Spotify. I can never keep track of who's got what. It changes all the time. I'm not a Spotify supporter, but loads of people use it, so you need to be part of it.
That's right. That's where it all goes these days.
Well, it does, and it's good and it's bad. It's the exposure helps, but that's everybody knows the story. The artists, as always, are getting edged out. On making any money off their music by the whole setup. So we don't know where we're headed next.
So in the past, you had to buy the music, but now you can just go and listen to it. You don't even have to buy it, do you?
Well, when you get guys like Bob Dylan selling their entire catalog, because he said I wouldn't. He said it would support generations of my descendants. He said, but it's all going to be gone in the next 10 years or so. So, I need to get the money while I can.
That's right, yeah. Well, it's been very good talking to you.
I
really
appreciate
enjoyed
it.
it. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for coming in and, keeping our name out there.